Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the webinar today. I hope that you have had a very informative day and that we will continue to do so. And if you have any questions, please just let me know at the end. So my name is Whitney Smith. I am a senior support specialist here in EMEA, located in Germany, and I am responsible for CE and CEMS, which is what we're going to talk about today, the latest ways to couple the CE system or a CE system with a mass spec. Let me turn on my laser pointer so that we can all see everything. Okay. So what we're going to talk about today is the background of connecting capillary electrophoresis to mass spectrometry. Mainly, we'll talk about capillary zone electrophoresis, which is just separating based on size and charge. And then we'll talk about a little bit about the chip, the movement towards chip systems, and the newest integrated SCIEX mass spec system from SCIEX. And then we'll talk about just wrap everything up. So let's get going. So why would we want to couple a CE system to the mass spec system? Well, the separation mechanism for CE is different than LC. So we aren't based on size. We're based on separation is based on the differential migration of molecules in an applied electric field, which means how fast does my molecule move in when it's being affected by voltage. This allows us to have a higher resolving power and efficiency than as in comparison to LC. We're not trying to replace LC. We will never replace LC, but we can show things differently than LC can. When we talk about injection volumes, we're in the nanoliter. Our capillaries are typically less than 1 microliter in total volume. So we're injecting nanoliters, which means less sample requirement. We don't have as much buffer consumption as with LC, but we do have a lot of plastic waste. But you can do automated sample analysis because it's all contained in one system. So here's just an example of how you can see the comparison of a CE peak versus an HPLC peak. What kind of CE separations can be connected to the mass spec? Well, we can do capillary zone electrophoresis. We can do, which is just a broad term that means we're separating based on mobility, or we can do capillary isoelectric focusing now, which is separating into the PI ranges of proteins or peptides. So far, we cannot do gel electrophoresis separations, but there is another technique called capillary electrophoretic chromatography, which uses a packed column, but we haven't connected that to a mass spec. So we can't do any SDS separations at the moment. RNA and DNA, if it's containing a gel, we can't do that, and we can't do the typical glycan analysis like with the standalone systems. So how does CZE work? CZE is a separation based on the molecule's different electrophoretic mobility, which is how fast does my molecule move under a certain electric field. Basically, it would be like saying I have a Ferrari and I have a Fiat on the road, and I'm giving the same amount of gas. Which one's going to go faster? The Ferrari has a bigger engine, so it's going to go faster. So molecules with a higher electrophoretic mobility are going to move faster in the capillary. The separation, the mobility, the electrophoretic mobility can be altered through pH or viscosity of the solvent. Ionic strength is a very big factor because it all affects the current that's seen in the capillary. The voltage obviously is like giving more gas, and then the buffer composition can change the way that the molecules move. For CIEF, it's a different type of separation. We have a focusing step, so we have a mixture of components that we fill the capillary with, and then we'll separate it between an acid and a base, and then everything will focus into their PI ranges. And once they're in their PI ranges, they're neutral, so they no longer move. And then we mobilize that into the mass spec. So first, we're going to talk about the different types of CZE MS separations, and then we'll get into CHIPS and then CIEF, because the new ICIEF system is a chip-based system. So CZE, like I said, there are different ways to use CZE connections. There is the tri sprayer. So the CE separation buffer comes in the blue. And then you'll have to apply a sheath liquid, which is typically so a small percentage of isopropanol in water or acetonitrile, something that makes not the ionization, but the spray easier to happen. You also need nebulizer gas. So when all of this comes together, you get a spray with a typical Taylor cone, but there are some disadvantages. So the sheath liquid needs to be optimized, and all of that goes into the not only the composition of the sheath liquid needs to be optimized, but the flow rate of the sheath liquid needs to be optimized for each separation. So it is a little bit more work to get the best separation that you can, but there are also some advantages. So you can use it for any CE system. For example, our P800 Plus or the PACE MDQ Plus system can be connected through this tri-sprayer to any MS system. You can use traditional CE buffers, such as phosphate buffer or citrate buffer, because that sheath liquid is going to dilute the buffer coming into the mass spec. So you reduce the amount of contamination into your mass spec. Some of the cons is it can be complicated to set up. It has a history of being of low robustness. Also, because you dilute your CE buffer, you also dilute your CE analytes that you're looking for, which then dilutes your sensitivity, reduces your sensitivity. At SCIEX, we have the CESI, which is a sheathless system. So we have a separation capillary and a conductive line capillary, and at the end of the separation capillary, it's etched so that it's porous. This can be connected to a variety of mass specs from SCIEX and from other vendors. It's a plug and play. So it's you take your system, you switch out the source on your mass spec, you put your new capillary in, and you're ready to go. Like I said, it's sheathless, and the end of the separation capillary is etched so that it's porous, and your conductive liquid comes and surrounds your separation capillary so that you have a completed electrical circuit. This allows us to minimize or reduce the dilution effect from a sheath flow MS or MS setup. We also have lower flow rates, which increases the sensitivity. Here you can see we're down in the 50 to 150 nanoliter per minute range. We're in a nano flow situation. So the lower the flow rate, the higher the sensitivity, because you don't have effects from buffer. So what do we typically use? So we have multiple different capillaries that we can use for separations of small molecules or large molecules. We can separate everything from small ions up to large proteins. For our bare fused silica system capillary, we can have positive mode, or normal polarity, which means that the positive electrode is on the inlet side. We have approximately 30 nanoliter per minute flow rate. The electroosmotic flow also increases or enhances the separation. But we try to minimize the effects so that we have very sharp peaks by using a low pH buffer. We also have the ability to do negative ion separations using a reverse polarity. So say we do have to apply a little bit of pressure. We're in the 20 to 40 nanoliter per minute range for that because of the additional pressure. We also have the ability to coat this capillary with your own coating. Our typical coating is polyethylene imine, and that you would use a reverse polarity, and you'll see the negative ions. What are some of the typical background electrolytes or buffer systems that we use? The most common one that we use is acetic acid, 10% for small ions and peptides, and then 3% for larger peptides. We can use ammonium acetate for various nucleotides and nucleosides, so ADP, AMP, ATP, for example. We use a pH, it's a high pH, and then we measure it in positive mode. Formic acid is typically used for peptides and proteins. We can use ammonium bicarbonate, triethylamine for lipopolysaccharides. I personally have not tried that, but it is possible. You could also add, if you want to change the viscosity, you can add isopropanol. This does have the advantage of enhancing the spray capability because of the vapor pressure of the isopropanol. Like I said, we have 2 different capillaries that we offer, and then you have the ability to coat the bare fused silica on your own. Typical applications for the bare fused silica are glycopeptides, peptides, metabolites. The neutral cartridge we recommend for proteins or any kind of larger peptides. As an alternative to the neutral, you can use the polyethylene imine. The advantage of the PEI coating is that if it becomes damaged, you can rinse the capillary with base and then redo the coating. If the neutral cartridge becomes damaged, the coating becomes damaged at any time, then we need to replace the capillary. Here, we're just going to talk about some examples of what we've done with CESI. My colleague Steve Locke has done PACAP and glycopeptides. The problem with a lot of proteins is that they do tend to stick. But CE is an open tube, and what we typically do is rinse with base to remove anything that sticks in the capillary, so we have very low carryover. Also, whatever goes into the capillary comes out eventually, so we get a good signal. Here we just are showing that you can do a single injection. You can get complete amino acid sequence coverage for light chain and heavy chain of a monoclonal antibody, which is it's something that helps with confirmation with LC. Here is just showing again the carryover. So we have the carryover and the sensitivity for LCMS. A typical injection is 10 microliters, and I've already said that we have a lower injection volume where we're in the nanoliters. So here we've injected 70 nanoliters, and you can see we have about the same sensitivity or the same response in the mass spec as with the 10 microliters, and that's just because of the flow rate. But we also have the ability to do electrokinetic injection, which means we inject anything that's charged. And so if your protein or molecule is charged, then it's going to go in the capillary, which can then increase the sensitivity. And here for PACAP, we did electrokinetic injection, and you can see that the LOD is around 50 picograms per milliliter. CZE can also be applied to intact proteins and protein complexes. On the left here, you see a CIEF profile from UV, and then we did CZE on trastuzumab, and it looks like this. And you can see that they're mirror images, and that's just based on the separation. So we have here on the left-hand side, we have basic peaks, and on the right-hand side of the left picture, we have the acidic peaks, and it's just the opposite on here. The trend lately has been moving towards, of course, size is a big issue in the world. So we're trying to make everything smaller, and we're moving to chip systems. So one of the chip systems that's available is the zip chip from 908 Devices. It is, they sell chips, then you just have to pipette your sample directly into the chip. Complete buffer systems are available. It can be attached to different mass specs. Here it's coupled to a 6600 from SCIEX. It's basically just a glass chip that has had channels etched into the chip, and the spray comes off of the corner of the chip. So all you have to pipette in is the sample, but it does come with an auto sampler that would be transferring the sample to the chip itself. They have a wide variety of applications, from metabolites up to intact proteins. So here is an example of infliximab on the zip chip. The separation is faster because the channel is smaller. The downside is that it can only do positive MS mode electrospray. You can't do electrokinetic injection. You can't do stacking to make the peaks sharper. The kits have all of the buffers that you need, so there's no method development that's needed for the separations. Here you can see just another comparison. Here we have the P800 plus CIEF profile, the CZE profile on the P800 plus, and then so these two are UV based, and then this is the MS based with the chip, and you can see that we have a similar profile to the CZE UV profile. The drawback of the zip chip system is that there is no UV detection available. Not only the zip chip system, but also the CESI. You can't do simultaneous UV and mass spec detection, so you can't correlate it or make it more difficult to correlate. With CZE, there's no isoelectric point information available. Resolution obviously is not as good because we do have to use pressure at times. Yeah, and so now we're going to move on to ICIEF MS, which is the latest system. It is chip-based. It reduces the amount of time needed to confirm variants from months down to weeks, or possibly even days, depending on the complexity of the sample. Typically, we were having to scale up and do some ion exchange chromatography, do fraction collection, send some of it to mass spec and some of it to the CIEF, and then have to do a correlation between the two. But we have integrated that into a single function or a single system. So we have the ICIEF separation and UV detection, so we can get PI determination, and then we mobilize that and move that into the mass spec, where we can get mass spec detection and confirmation of those different variants. It's approximately 30 minutes per sample. High sensitivity, high resolution MS data comes from the 7600, and then we have software for the data analysis. And the next slide is just a visualization of what happens during the separation. If I can get it to start. Oh, I saw it. There we go. So here you see the cathodic and anodic peaks coming in, and they'll sort into their PI ranges. So here we have our acidic PI marker, our basic PI marker, and in the middle is the NIST map. And here you can see the different variants, and right now they're being mobilized into the mass spec. We do lose a little bit of resolution during the mobilization in the UV, but in the mass spec, it's all separated out. And I'll show you that on the next slide. So then they're all moved out and we're good to go. So here you have your the ICIEF compared from a standalone system to our ICIEF with our Entabio ZT system. Here you have your PI markers, your 2-lysine, your single lysine, main peak, and then your acidic variants. So in the main peak, you can see the different glycosylation patterns. You have your PI values in the UV region. We can identify aglycosylated all the way up to multiple glycosylation and variants of glycosylation. And then something else that you could do on just to confirm all of these things would be the CESCS assay and the glycan assay, which would be on the CESI or the P800 plus. And so you have a complete characterization of your molecule, confirming the variants, all in a single package from SCIEX. So over the last 10 years, connection of CE to mass spec has made a big leap into the future for minimizing the size and the maximizing the types of separations that can be accomplished. Sheath flow has been replaced by sheath flow, and sheathless has been replaced by more rich, robust chip systems, and we are moving towards increasing the ability to use CE and MS together for characterizing more kinds of molecules, not just small molecules and peptides, but also the complex proteins. CZE, so sheathless and sheath flow, can be used for all kinds of molecules ranging from ions up to complex protein systems in a CZE separation. And with the new ICIEF Entabio ZT system, we can work better to characterize proteins and or monoclonal antibodies and decrease the amount of time needed to get new drugs onto the market. So thank you for your time and attention. And if you have any questions, then please just let me know.